think I might be live. I'm gonna wait for my Twitch to kick in here. Alright, looks like it's kicking. So I can close that. Wait for some people to show up. Let's do, just send out a tweet to people so that people know what's up. Da 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 da. I posted this elsewhere, but I'm just gonna throw in into the Discord, let people know. I am live, as I should be. Right? It's been a while. Because I decided to take a winter break, and then normally we have Rebel content, but they decided to take an additional week off, and so we got more clip shows, and I didn't feel like I needed to go into more details about shit that we already covered through the year that they did, even though you had the breaking news story that apparently they couldn't pay off their mortgage payments or some nonsense, but that wasn't enough to do an entire stream on, so I just didn't do it. But we are here. I just want to promote this just in a couple places first, and then go for it. Here we go. Yeah, so and part of it today is I was going to, at least I promoted this, that I was going to talk about centrism. And then something happened. Something happened in the United States of America that was pretty big news. And so I'm going to talk about centrism, but then I'll move on and link it up with kind of how I feel of what's happening in the States right now. I think that's a sufficient promotion. Still says no one's here. Can't tell if that's a lag. I mean, people could talk in the chat if they can hear me, and then I know that they have arrived, and then I can start maybe in a couple minutes. What I really need to do is have one of those opening sequences that a lot of streamers do. Hey, Paige. Yeah, I want to do like I don't know, get what the hell is it called? Music that's not copyright, and play it over an intro with like an image, but I have to make that and do it. It should be relatively easy to do, but I was too busy having fun over the weekend. Well, holiday. That lasted forever. Got to have fun with the kids and all that fun stuff. So something did happen. I wonder what it was. So, for anyone who, I mean, there's going to be people who I interact with more frequently that knows that I got into, I don't know what to call it, an interaction with a centrist. And I'm not going to name them, and I don't want any, I guess, bullying to occur. I'm pretty sure they have a bigger platform than I do anyways, but they also discussed mental health issues that they might have, and so I don't want to like dogpile them if they really need space from that, and so I'm not going to name them, and I'm not going to direct people their way, but I will talk about other figures that I think are more nefarious, and I will also like connect it back to the conversation I had with this individual as to root this conversation, and then also tie it in, because this does have relationships to what had happened today in America. So, I guess I'll start. 1 second, I gotta minimize my Facebook or mute it. I should find a way to mute it. All right, let's get rid of that for a second, so we don't get any large dings happening in the middle of this. So this right here, it might be a little bit small. I try to enlarge it. Could be something to do with the image itself. But here we have what the kids these days are calling a meme. This is a meme. And this was shared recently by the serfs. And as you can say here, you have the proud centrist who's so smart. You can see that his brain extends all the way down, and it's so big that he's made it a chair that the centrist can sit on. The proud centrist, while he's smoking a pipe there, right? Really intellectual, the centrist here. And then you have a scale. And on the scale here, we have on the left side, you got anti-fascists, right? Left-wing anti-fascists here. And it says, punched Nazi. And on the right here, you have a white pride symbol down here. It says white pride worldwide. And then it says shooting, stabbing, car attacks. And you can tell this scale is balanced. So the idea is here, Mr. Super Proud Centrist looks at Antifa and looks at, in this case, white nationalists or white supremacists and thinks they're identical. And you get a similar argument when it comes to Nazis, or let's put any other fascist or far-right movement in the United States. You could just, or around the world, you could just plug in there because they're equal to anti-fascists in the centrists' giant brain that they're using as a seating apparatus. Right? Now, this centrist that I had interacted with took this meme, shared by the serfs, and commented on it being kind of upset. Like this was a straw man on centrists in that this is sort of like the myth of like balance or moderation without getting into details about like what a centrist actually is. And the thing that frustrates me is that this meme is poking fun at an aspect of sort of what centrism demands. But I will concede, and we'll get into what centrism is, or what these centrists tend to define themselves as. But what they're trying to get at is that not every centrist is going to have similar beliefs, and really it's about like picking and choosing certain things, and it's not this false balance, false moderation thing. So the claim is this was a straw man. Now my reaction to this was that I actually don't think this is a straw man in many ways that we're going to get to very shortly. But not only do I not think this is a straw man, I think the problem is when you actually critically analyze what the centrists tell you, it'll inevitably lead back to this type of thinking, and then going from this type of thinking, it tends to lend cover towards fascist and fascist movements. And so the interesting thing is, today, as I was researching for this segment, and like I use research lightly, I was trying to find things and doing a bit of digging, a coup attempt started to occur in the United States, where the right wing was storming the Capitol building, and it was amazing watching all these apparently super woke centrists creating either completely ignoring what was going on in America or creating apologia for what was going on in the Capitol building, downplaying it or basically wiping it aside as irrelevant and inconsequential. And so here's the thing. If there are any centrists listening right now who are already seething, they're really angry and they feel like I've strawmanned them in some capacity, I would say if you find yourself thinking that you agree with some left-wing positions, and maybe you're when you calculate all your beliefs such that you do your centrist calculus, you find yourself closer to the left on more issues than you do on the right, or something like that, or the more important issues to you that you agree with tend to be on the left, or whatever, maybe it's time to rethink and reanalyze your relationship with a bunch of people that want to downplay and think that what happened today in the United States was either A-okay or nothing. That nothing happened today. Nothing happened today. It was all an illusion. So here's the thing. My hope is you'll just abandon this centrism bullshit and join me on the left. Now, I'm going to bust through some of this stuff. So, what do centrists believe? And this is what I've gathered from my from my deep research of investigating centrists. There's three sort of principles, I think, that at least some, if not all, kind of adopt. And each one of these has their own sort of problems. But this is what they are. We get first that centrism is in some cases an unbiased method. So basically the idea here is it's not a set of beliefs that someone as a centrist believes. So usually if I tell you what does a left-wing person believe, or someone believes in communism or any ideology, you can usually set out a list of beliefs that they would probably adhere to. With centrism, they want to say that it's not about a listing of beliefs. The issue is it's a method. It's logic. It's reason. What we care about is getting at truth. So it's not about a set of beliefs. It's about a way of getting at those beliefs. So that's the first thing that they want to say. The second thing they want to say is that they favor reform over radicalize or radical action or radicalization. And the issue here is that this isn't well characterized by all of them. So what constitutes a radical action? What constitutes reform? At what point does reform become radicalization? And I've said in the past on streams that I've done that I find that actually this distinction is kind of nonsensical in a lot of ways. And so when people talk about reform or radicalization, it just annoys me because they're not clear terms. Like at some point, reforms can be so large that now other people would perceive them as radical or others wouldn't and still call them reformist or whatever. So it's like these things are vague in concept anyways, but they're going to be reform good, radicalization bad. What we need is some kind of moderation. Now they'll argue that what we don't need is a false moderation, which they think is represented in this meme, right? So there's a balancing thing here. That's bad. That's false moderation. What's good moderation is you've used your method, your thinky thing, and you've come to these conclusions, but now you got to think, oh, I'm going to use little incremental steps because any big jump is just bad. The other thing now, and this gets it has levels of complexity as well. And I've sort of hinted to it already, but that when it comes to a list of beliefs, it's a mishmash, right? And so the idea is someone might say, I'm a centrist because my beliefs aren't all on one side or the other, but I pick and choose a bunch from each side and it kind of averages out to the middle. Now, the part where this gets really confusing is that it depends on whether we're talking about the real world or the static political compass. So I'm pretty sure that everyone has seen it by now. You get the quadrants of the different political affiliations, and people take the political compass test and find out where they are. Now, that whole thing has problems. I'm not going to get into that right now. I find it kind of useless in many ways. But let's just say they're going to say, hello, light but gentle. Welcome. They're going to say that when you take the quiz, you're a centrist because all the beliefs that you hit, you tend towards in the center. You have a little bit of each. You've sort of made it all work, right? Oh, hi, that's Vienna. Light but gentle. All right, Vienna. Now that's according to the static political compass, right? But you can see this can become a problem because what often happens is that in reality, life isn't static. So, for example, if you have a two-party system, which often it gets framed, centrism gets framed within our current political system. In the political system in America, you got a two-party system. But here's the thing. They're already so far to the right that the Democrats are even to the right of the center, the real center, based on the political compass static map. But their center is now way on the right. Because, the Democrats are already center-right. Republicans are leading coups. And the centrists are going to be somewhere between being right of center and wanting Qs, right? Now, this is what they'll say, and they think that this is fine and dandy because that's the super rationalistic centrist way. Now, here's the thing: is any centrists out there who want to disagree with me, you can. I mean, there's only 6 people watching, but if any of you want to disagree and hop into the chat, and then when I'm done doing my spiel, you can jump in and you can try to debate me or tell me how I misconstrued your centrism. But this is what I gather from talking to centrists, engaging with their content. This is what I gather what they mean by centrist. And I hope I did a very good job at steelmanning your beliefs. And now I'm going to point out why I think that they're really bad. Yeah, shut up, Mo. You're not a centrist. Oh, my God. ML Mo in the chat wants to tell me that he's a centrist. Did I spell center wrong in the... Now you got me rethinking whether I spelled center wrong in the thing or not. Anyways, so let's see here. This is my problem. The first problem I have is that a method doesn't really work as an ideology. And there's like an easy way to think about this, right? When most people think of what an ideology is, they think of it as like a sort of set of ethical ideals that somebody holds. Like treat other people good or like something, I don't know. Whatever you could think of being an ethical idea. Social hierarchy is bad, right? Or social hierarchy is good if you're a fascist. Now, when it comes to a method, I want to say to my centrist friends, I also like being unbiased in my logical approach to things. I am, in fact, a person who loves logic. Look at what I got for Christmas. I've got my... Look at this science. Look at this. I'm loving science so hard that it's shooting rainbows on my chest right now, all right? Science, logic, love it. A-OK, beautiful. We're on board. Now here's the thing. I love logic. I love thinking. I love being unbiased. And yet I'm still a leftist. So here's the problem. When you claim to adopt a centrist methodology and pretend like you're some sort of fucking rational brain, you appear to everyone else who reason themselves into their position as being a proud centrist who's sitting on your own brain, or in the parlance, if you remember back in South Park, you like the smell of your own farts. You like to stick your head between your legs, and you like the smell of your own brew. That's what you are. That's what you're doing. It's annoying. So, the part of it is think critically about things, yes. But that doesn't mean that other people in other ideologies are themselves biased merely by arguing themselves into their particular conclusion. So this is the other problem with... So this leads, I think, into the second problem, which is that centrists, by reducing themselves to a methodological predisposition, is that it just becomes an aesthetic, right? Part of the issue is that being a centrist doesn't tell me what you actually believe. Centrists might see this as a good thing, right? You can't tell what I believe because we're all individuals and we all have our individual thoughts because we're super rational people who can all disagree and like we're individuals, and so you'll never know what we are, right? Now, my issue with this is being an individual and using a methodology can lead you into some pretty shitty views. And I've met a lot of centrists who hold a lot of shitty positions, just utterly shitty, despicable positions. And we'll get to some of those centrists soon. Now, you can argue every day like, oh, they're not really centrist, da-da-da-da-da. But here's the thing, is like, how can you tell the difference? If each one of you thinks that you've used your super fancy special methodology, and that one of you arrives at the conclusion that somehow, like, I don't know, abortion is A-okay, but the other one agrees that, like, pro-life is better and thinks that you want to kill babies by being a centrist who thinks that pro-abortion is like, what's going on here? Elrond's the one true centrist. Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. It's like you're left with this conclusion that it's like, how can you... It all just boils down to you all just circle jerking yourselves, pretending you're having some sort of discussion with no real way of picking out, like, what's the moral truth here? And that's my point. It's like, when I tell you that I'm a leftist, or whatever my ideological predisposition is, it's because now you know where I want to go. You know what my goals are. You know, it also helps you, how do I accomplish that? How do I get there? What is centrism? You know, like, if it can lead you into thinking really terrible things about sex, race, or gender, like, what's the point? You're doing things that are immoral. It's leading you to immoral conclusions, and that's bad, you know? And so lastly, my last problem with this is that a preference towards moderation is itself an ethical state. Is an ethical stance, sorry. And the thing is, it's usually not justified by centrists. So you could tell with like a lot of what they say is like radicalism is bad. So what we need to do, radical and like going too fast, rocking the boat, uncivil discourse, all these things are bad. Because really what we all got to do is we got to all hold hands, sing Kumbaya, and have really civil discussions. And by like just sitting around having civil discussions, we will be civil and what, right? Because what's happening here is like this pushes everything to the right. Like I don't know how you can't realize this. As soon as you open the gates and you go, we're just gonna have a discussion. We're gonna have a civil discussion, and I'm gonna have a civil discussion, say for example, with someone who thinks genocide is okay. And so you invite them on. You go, hey Bill, tell me about genocide. Tell me about how cool genocide is. And we're just gonna have a civil. We're just gonna chit chat. We're gonna shoot the shit about genocide. You know. Is that good? I happen to think that discourse is not a good in itself. Because platforming people who want to argue for the death of millions of people is immoral. It's not good. It's very bad. It's very bad. So these, in a nutshell, are my problems with centrism. Now, I will say, in this discussion with them who should not be named, they told me, they started naming like other centrists, right? Because they were like, who doesn't fit this image? Their argument was like, there's tons of centrists who don't fit this visual representation up here, and they should be considered like the real centrists that we should listen to. That's what I was told. And one of these people that was listed by this individual was a person named Friended, Adam Friended. Now, I had known about this person in the past for having some pretty shitty takes. And I didn't know what has happened since then. And like, at this point, I don't care about naming this person because fuck him. And for one, I don't care that he has a big following. Way bigger than me, so I'm not like exposing anyone to him. But I was in the middle of watching a stream of theirs where they were discussing a centrist. So what they were doing was watching him. So Adam Friended and I think his friend Sitch were watching a leftist, I'm assuming, made a video that centrism is bad, much like I'm doing here. And then they were like critiquing it. And in this critique, we got a very interesting thing that was said. So I'm going to pop it over here. Now, here's the thing is, I shouldn't need context for this. At least in sense of, like, I already sort of, like, gave you context of what this whole stream is. It's 6 fucking hours long. And let's be real, I didn't finish it. What happened is a coup started happening in America, and I stopped watching this shit. That seemed a little bit more important than what was happening on this stream that was made back in May 2020. But... right, we're in the heat of I think this is actually right before all the Black Lives Matter stuff happened after George Floyd, right? I don't think George Floyd had happened yet. So even keep that in mind. George Floyd stuff had not happened yet. Now, you also don't need context, because what I'm going to give you is, I think it's Sitch. So there's a Steve and a Sitch, and they're just images in the bottom here. So I don't know. I can't tell who the fuck is who when they're talking. Adam, you can tell when he's talking, because he's on video compared to the other people, right? But we're going to hear one of them ask Friended a question, and we're going to get to see how Friended responds to such questions. So here it comes. Now, there might be a little bit of seconds before he asks the question, but then he's going to ask the question. I'll also tell chat if it's not loud enough, I'll try to figure something out, so let me know.
Totally applicable in
I
all
restarted
cases.
the window, so...
I think it's you, Adam.
I restarted the window. It sounds great now.
Okay. It sounds better. Are Antifa as bad as the neo-Nazis, Adam?
Antifa? Oh, they're
Yeah.
worse.
Oh.
No, they're all the
So
same. They're all bad.
You say worse.
Come on.
So I think people get into the sticky widgets about this, because you could say, oh, well, if you look at just the ideology, technically, the neo-Nazis should be worse. But then it kind of gets overshadowed by the fact that there seems to be a lot more Antifa than neo-Nazis, and the fact that everyone in society hates neo-Nazis, so they never gain any traction.
Yeah, exactly.
Antifa kind of, I don't want to
There
say
are-
fully skate by, but obviously gets a lot more leeway.
Steve?
There are people on left-wing YouTube channels unpopular left-wing YouTube channels that apologize for Antifa. I don't largely see that for neo-Nazis. There's a distinction right there.
No,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
that's
big time.
That's a great point.
That's a great fucking point. What a great fucking point there, Adam Friended. What a great point. Who's worse, neo-Nazis or anti-fascists? Well, of course, anti-fascists. Centrism, am I right? And the funny thing is, this was given to me as the example of not being this. Adam Friended is not this. Woke Brains Centrist is not this. Now you will notice they hedged it, right? Well, the reason why Antifa is in fact worse than neo-Nazis currently, even though ideologically, like what they actually believe, yeah, okay, Nazis are bad, but we're just going to ignore that. We're going to put it to the side, and all we're going to discuss is, well, yes, but right now, currently, the Antifa are coming for you. Watch out. They will kill you. And yet, today of all days, what did we get? We got a beautiful coup attempt on the U.S. government by right-wing fascists. That's what we got. So what do you think Adam Friended said in response to this? I mean, it should be pretty friggin' obvious what he said, but let's throw this up here. Let's look at this. So this was said at 2:26 in the midst of the ongoing ruckus at the American Capitol. Adam Friended sent out a tweet going, "There is real oppression in the world. Wokeness is not about addressing those real grievances. Wokeness is about promoting fictional grievances to gain social and political power." Right? You're going to see a trend here that these so-called centrists, what they are really, really, really upset about is this cultural stuff. What they perceive as cultural degeneracy. I'll let you know that this Adam guy, he's involved in something called ComicGate. Most of his videos are promoting this idea. It's the same thing with Gamergate. The only difference is now they're upset about diversity and inclusion in comic books. Ooh, big spooky. Women and minorities in comic books? Oh my god, what's going to happen to the world? That apparently to them is way more oppressive and is the bigger threat, and we need to be on guard for it. We need to fight it, and we need to fight it to the death. But people taking over the government? Right-wing fascists storming the gate? I'm not even going to cover it. I'm just going to completely fucking ignore it. That's me, Adam Friended. We got more. So I'd love to point out that it wasn't just Adam. What did we have? We had Sitch was this other person in the chat, right? And I'm guessing since they're on a show and they're both like high-fiving each other over how centrist they are. Let's find this. Got another beautiful one. So here's Sitch. What do we get? I wonder how police stopping Trump protesters from taking over the Capitol fits in with certain dudes. Trump and the police are enabling a fascist takeover of America theory. So here's the thing. You're going to see some incidents like this from today. In fact, a woman was shot and killed by either Capitol Security or Capitol Police. But you compare what happened on the footsteps, what happened in and around the building, and what happened today was nothing. Nothing like what happened to Black Lives Matter over the entire summer. Nothing at all. Or what happened in Portland to all those people over and over again. Beaten, bludgeoned, shot in the face with rubber bullets, shot in the eyes with shrapnel. Over and over again. None of that happened today for them. In fact, there's images. Let's see if I can find this shit. Have we got a good one? Here's this is the police at Capitol. Here we go. Let's do this. This is the police taking selfies with the assholes on Capitol Hill today.
ACAF.
Oh wait. I don't know why the video is freezing unless they froze it there on purpose, but you can see, oh look, they're taking a sentence. And what are they saying? ACAF. Do you know what ACAF is? All cops are friends. All cops are friends. ACAF. All right, so that's one. What was the another thing that we got today? What about this? So this was at the beginning of the rally.
Police are.
Did you ever see anything like this at any of the Black Lives Matter or anti-fascist rallies that occurred? Look at this shit.
Police are squabbling with protesters. Oh, there we go.
Look at that. Now I bet you we're never gonna find out what the hell that was. But that's police.
Police are squabbling
moving
with
the barricades.
protesters. Oh, there we go.
Allowing them to come through. So you're gonna get a lot of bullshit from centrists. You're gonna get a lot of this. You're gonna get a lot of this. That somehow what happened today was absolutely nothing. It was so meaningless, so inconsequential. We don't have to worry about it. Everything is fine. Let me see. I think I have another post by someone who's doing that as well. Yes, we got Michael Tracy. For any of you who know Michael Tracy, again, more of these people like to pretend that they're so special and woke. I took this because this was amazing. So this was back in August. To the extent that you can call it ideological, this is left-wing street violence. It's been occurring constantly. Right-wing street violence should be covered when it occurs, but the disparity in coverage relative to proportionality is totally absurd. And then you get this today. Trump has told them to go home. State agents are actively quelling the mob. This is no chance of preventing the certification of Biden, much less overthrowing the government. It's still a wild scene, but really, chill the fuck out. Chill the fuck out, guys. And like, if you compare these two things too, right? What is happening in the first instance? What are the Black Lives Matter people fighting for? What are anti-fascists fighting for? They're fighting for the state to stop killing people. They're fighting for their lives. What are those MAGA assholes fighting for? The MAGA assholes, the fascists, they're fighting for control to harm you. They're fighting to get diversity out of their fucking comic books. So here's the thing. You might be a centrist and you might be like, oh, I'm super rational though. I'm super rational. I'm not as bad. These people are radical. Oh yeah? Well, if these people are radical, all these people storming the gates and they're not your friends, why are your friends, your centrist allies, giving cover for them constantly? And frankly, why are you giving cover to other centrists? Grow a moral fucking spine. This is not good. What happened in America is not cool. That's my lesson. This is, it was short. It was 30 minutes of telling you, fucking stop it, centrists. Stop it. Now, I'm done with that. The next thing I was going to talk about was optics and shit, but maybe we can open the floor. I feel like... Does anyone want to come in and chat? Should I let some of you in chat? Who's Zalrock Chaos? That's an awesome name. Zalrock Chaos. Yeah, they were terrorists. I don't feel bad either. We just said... Elrond, do you want to come? Should we do a sketch? Should you come in and be the... do you want to be a centrist? All right. Yeah, fuck it. Let's go. Let's go, woke brain. Yeah, what's up?
Centrism is good, though.
Yeah.
Listen, here's my argument.
I'm listening.
Listen, this is important. Okay? I think like the conversation that we're having here today is the type of conversation that we need to have more of, right? Like we need to be willing to just have conversations about these things, right? And so the important thing, it's really about having conversations, Jerry.
Yeah. I wanted to like so as witness, as someone who was privy to the conversation I'm referring to, how good at conversing was the other side? Because like I get the feeling that every time I try to engage with a centrist, what that happens is all of a sudden the goalpost moved and shift, and then all of a sudden we're back at the same point again, and they still won't acknowledge it. It like happens over and over again.
No, I would agree with that. I mean, like, like I don't know a nice way to put it. I mean, I know the situation that spawned this, and like you, I don't want to dive too far into that specifically, but you know, most of what I've seen around like the centrism discussion is just this whole constant goal shifting. Like to me, like centrism as a political label feels like a way of dealing with the cognitive dissonance of knowing that left-wing positions are usually more moral, but you have this like indoctrination of right-wing feelings about things, which I don't get. But
don't you feel like I feel like all it is because they're afraid of admitting the like right-wing views that they have to a certain extent. Either that or they're full out like the friended person. Because there's no way, like, if you're like railing against Gamergate, Comicgate, and and like, I think one of the things that they said in this long form chat, you know, they touch on the thing like gender is biological, and we're just facts logic. In fact, like they said truth over and over again. The reason why we're centrists is because we care about a methodology to get at truth, and all these like leftists, they just like all they care about is like being morally right, and they don't care about the truth. And it's like, can't you be like morally right and believe in truth?
You would think. You would think it'd be both.
And it gets to the whole thing. It's like, is there like, because look, we're both people. This is something that I was doing work on before I dropped out of my PhD. But you've done some videos on biological essentialism. So they want to sit here and pretend like their method is the thing that's getting them at truth. And it isn't. In fact, it's getting them at like false things.
No, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, that's always the point I come back to in talking about how we think about data, right? Like, a lot of all we get from studies is just data. And then how you choose to interpret it is going to lead to what conclusions you define as truth. And if you're like an essentialist, if you think that, you know, everything has this particular essence that's unchangeable, you necessarily have to get to this idea where the categories that you observe currently must be the way that reality is, as opposed to allowing for any sort of evidence to the contrary. Like you have to twist things to fit that, because it's the only way to make that worldview make sense. And like, I to the extent that, I don't want to get too political here, but I think centrists do that a goddamn lot. And like, I was thinking about this with like, I was talking with Mo, who's in the chat, about like how to think about the labels that we have, right? So like in neuroscience, we have a bunch of different names for a bunch of different brain regions, right? But like we have a lot of labels that fit the same region. So like there's a part of the brain that we might call the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, right? And other people might call it the pregenual anterior cingulate. But like they're the exact same region, right? But what centrists do is instead of applying the same, like different labels to one region, they'll apply the same label to like different regions. And so to one person, they're saying, oh, centrism is X. Another person will say centrism is Y. And I think, as you already said, there's no way to have like a real conversation about what your beliefs are, because you're all pretending that you've arrived to some reasonable, like logical centrist position, but you all believe completely different things. And so like, what's the point of calling yourself a centrist if you're so heterogeneous that you can just be anything?
And the thing with the discussion with this one person was like, it started off with centrism being a method, but you can tell like what underlied the method was this like presupposition that reformism and moderation was good, but those were never defended. And like, we never had a chance to defend them, but it's like, I don't even know how we could defend them. Because at one point I pushed this person to the point of being like, let's imagine the Overton window shifts. And I was like, what if it only takes just a few incremental steps? Like, we could just reform ourselves into genocide. Can a centrist logically come to the conclusion, under like, rational centrist brain, that genocide is okay? And he conceded that yes, given if the Overton window shifts that far, a centrist could logically come to that conclusion. And to me, like, that's a moral problem. Because genocide's bad. If somehow your adherence to moderation and reforming makes you say that in some cases a centrist can argue that genocide is okay, then there's something fucking wrong with centrism.
Well, do you want to know the centrist response to that?
Yeah. Here it goes.
Well, I mean, can you logically explain why genocide is bad? What's the argument? Like, I've heard of Kant's categorical imperative. Have you heard of the categorical imperative?
Oh my god. Has that been like? Because I remember you brought up the categorical imperative recently, but was that like brought up as like?
No, God, no.
Jesus Christ.
That'd be amazing.
Oh,
it'd be amazing if someone thought the categorical imperative was
justified genocide. Jesus. There was like one other thing that you got to that I wanted to highlight too, which is like, there's this issue with like bias and this like pretense of like my methodology is like so unbiased and that's what can get me to these like conclusions and stuff like this. And it reminds me of well, I mean, for one, there's literature that shows that like if you completely think that you lack a bias, you're often like very prone to falling into biases. But it also reminds me of this one incident with Sam Harris, who's also sort of known as like this quintessential centrist type, who just sits there on his podcast and rationalizes the fuck out of everything. It's just super rational brain, and he picks it apart. And super centrist man, Harris. And he had a debate with Ezra Klein. And at one point, Ezra Klein tried to like hone in on him about like what Sam Harris's identity is. And Sam Harris basically eschewed all identity. Like he's an identityless being who has no affiliations or groupings.
Yeah, that makes sense. He doesn't call himself a neuroscientist ever.
Well, I mean, he recently said that like he made a video after Trump lost, I think, or it was before the lead up to Trump's or the recent election, and he was trying to distance himself from the intellectual dark web, and he basically put it out there as sort of like, well, I was never really a part of this group anyways. I just thought it was a silly joke, right? It's like he can never be like, he's so slippery. Like you either get him out of context all the time, or like you try to put a label on him that he doesn't. He's so unlabelable. And it's all just cover for the shitty beliefs he has. Like the fact that he wrote an article justifying torture. Like, in some ways, we don't need a label for these people. You're just shitty people. Yeah. But they all seem to have this pretense of like centrist rationality, like I'm super smart and everyone else is an idiot and biased. And yet, they all seem to justify and support shitty things. I wonder why.
It's weird. It's weird how that happens. It's weird. It's weird.
Oh God. So I'm gonna transition in a second. I want to reach out and see if Rika's available, and chat optics with him. But what are your thoughts on what happened today?
God, I'm still sort of reeling from it, and I think everyone sort of in my circle is like it's. I understand for a lot of people it's like watching TV, but the rest of us are sort of like, and we're still watching it, right? We're not in DC, but it's very much like a weird feeling to be the country watching their government implode. Normally, we're just doing it to other people. So it's weird. It's weird to watch ourselves do it to ourselves.
I had a tweet about it was like sort of about this like the surrealness of it, which is like I'm watching the stream by like one of the pro coup people who's in the fucking wing of the Capitol, and on his live stream he goes, 20,000 in the chat, let's go. What up, gamers? Smash that like button. And
subscribe to watch more downfall of our country.
But it's like he's in the middle of participating in a coup, being like, smash that subscribe, and it was so fucking weird to me. Like I almost had like an out of body experience, being like, never in my whole life did I think we would reach a state when these morons from the internet mobilized together, stormed the Capitol, and were live streaming their stupid coup that failed.
Yeah, no, it's weird. I mean, like, God, how long ago was it? It wasn't that long ago that like live streaming became such a big thing. And we started with like, oh, we'll live stream like some video games. And then it was like, oh, we're going to live stream, people with no political or any sort of education talking about politics. To we're going to live stream Richard Spencer. To 20,000 people in the chat. Let's go take down America. Yeah, no, it's wild. I saw in the chat, apparently Oddnon has some thoughts as well.
Oh, sweet. I can throw you on Oddnon. Let's do it.
Oddnon,
if you beat me to it, you can drag them. If you hop into one of the chats, Oddnon, and then we can drag you in. Whoop. Oddnon?
Welcome,
I
Oddnon.
will say, because okay, you do something first, and then I want to say something. And then Oddnon can speak.
I was just going to say, Oddnon, welcome to the Jody Hour.
Yo, it's your boy Oddnon. Smash that subscribe and like button.
And I will say, because Oddnon is humble, I'm going to put in the chat a link to his new podcast that I enjoyed. So I'll do that, and Oddnon, take it away.
Oh, well, that's appreciated. Things are a little crazier than that right now. Other than my little pod. But no, there were just what you all were saying about the like, subscribe, that whole thing. I mean, it was really surreal, but I think the thing that's important here is that those people that would not find that strange are the people that, I mean, clearly those are the people that it's appealing to. But it just goes to show that there's a whole swath of people that not only support these things happening, but like they want to meme it. It's like the Christchurch shooting with subscribe to PewDiePie. I had the misfortune of accidentally seeing that.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was just it was a big meme. And I think the far more dangerous thing about this is there are these people, I'm not going to use the term grifters because it's overused, but there are these people like Baked Alaska or whoever the hell else, who would follow whatever these types of things are just to play out the joke.
Well, I think they definitely fit outside of the category of grift. Like, they're just fucking fascists.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, But I mean, it was weird. I mean, like the subscribe to PewDiePie thing, which was like the whole like them saying subscribe to PewDiePie to everything, and then that going viral. I mean, there was a level of surreality to that, but like, to a certain extent, that's kind of understandable about like viral culture and whatnot. It's a little different, like, because like I remember, like I can't remember how long ago this was. Shit, like when the coup in Turkey that failed as well was happening, right? And that had like a level to it as well, because it was, everyone had their smartphones out and was like filming this stuff happening. But it was a lot different than like using it almost as like a branding exercise,
Yeah.
Like that to me is just, and like, of course it's like a prototypical, like an American style of having a coup. It's making it a branding exercise,
Well, I think that's what you just said is kind of the key to that. Like it's gone kind of beyond. So as to a previous, you had like this ideology, right, where you're following these certain tenets of an idea that lead to a means to an end. And the thing that I'm finding more scary than anything is that it really is just breaking down to, a fucking Gillette commercial. It's coming down to this level of branding that you can't. It's really hard to work around that. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I don't know what to do either. I mean, again, like the end of the day, like what we have to do is, I don't know, somehow make fascism not cool for people, and part of that is like destroying it, fighting it, getting rid of it, making it not acceptable. And part of that is getting rid of the clown fascist that was in the White House, but it's not just that, right? Because they're going to find new people to latch onto. But it's like trying to find a way to like denormalize this. And
how do you suggest going about doing that?
Fighting it.
Yeah,
like,
good answer.
I don't like you do. But this is the thing: you don't do it by playing this. Like, let's just have small chats with them, and everything will be nice. There's a reason why Antifa is morally good, and why these centrists don't like it. Because Antifa actually, can you imagine if anti-fascists were there today to fight these fuckers?
Oh, it would have been an actual bloodbath.
Well, I mean, there would be a level of bloodbath, but you would actually probably have the police intervene at that point when they didn't intervene with what happened when the fascists went and did stuff. But you would also have a level of, if fascists were to be there to provoke and stop them from getting as close as the Capitol as they did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was the one thing when you look back at Charlottesville, and you had a lot of people there. It's annoying that you have to keep on like having these lessons learned over and over again. But you had many people who were not even involved in like any sides in that thing, being like the anti-fascists were there to protect us from these assholes who came to our city with tiki torches and body armor and weapons.
That's true. That's true.
I think though that like we have to have a balanced conversation. What about the Target that was burnt down in Oregon or wherever? I don't know. I don't fucking care.
I mean, but it is like, it's a sad Americanism too, right? Because it's like the Target burning down and having like the National Guard come in to protect a Target and a Walmart and all this shit. Where it's like the Capitol building, it's like, no, let them go in there. Everything's fine. Everything's normal. And that's because, what is it? The American power is not in the Capitol building. It's Target.
Honestly, I was just thinking that. One's a corporation, the other is an effectual.
Yeah. Well, ineffectual in part because it's bought by corporations. And I don't want to take that to like go down the kind of like typical Jimmy Dore wing of the party to be completely nihilist, right? There is, I mean,
there are no black women for you to shout over, so it would be difficult.
But here's the thing: is like you have people like Ilhan Omar, AOC, Cori Bush, Rashida Tlaib, Bernie Sanders, like all these people, and like you have these people have found a way to raise money to get into Congress, to get into the Senate, without corporate money. And here's the thing: is in me saying this right now, I'm not saying that like electoralism is the way to go and it's the only solution. And I'm not even saying that I agree. I'm like to the left of these people, so I'm not saying that everything they do is perfect. But the point is, like, that is one way of changing the system without, say, I don't know, relying on resources that like, or like waiting for Target to buy all the politicians again, or like whatever company comes around, right? But I think part of it is like, I don't know, we have to, as a culture, we have to shun civil discourse and tell Nazis to fuck off, you know, either verbally or with our presence until they go away.
Okay, well, again, role playing as a centrist here, right? Role playing as a centrist. What do you do about centrists?
What do you do about centrists?
Yeah, like if you want to convince them that centrism is bad, like, yeah, I mean, like, let's be real. Logical arguments don't actually convince people that their positions are wrong. It just convinces them to justify it in a new way. So how do you, like, and I think we can agree that there are levels of moral depravity in terms of political positions. We can put the alt-right, white nationalists and white supremacists on one side and maybe move centrist, you know, a few steps over. So, like, the tactics do have to be different. And so, like, how do you then convince these people to not make fascism look good and have them move away from those morally dubious positions?
So I'll give you a joke answer first. And that is, what we should do is take all the debate people and discussion people and civil discourse types, centrists, all that fun stuff. And we stick them all in like a matrix where none of their communications leave, but they all just have to discourse with each other for all of eternity. And we'll just set them off to the side, and then the rest of us can go on living peacefully and happily. So that's the joke, kids.
Is it a joke? Is it
a joke indeed?
But the real answer would be something like, I mean, part of it is like it's going to work on various degrees. Like, I think some people identify as a centrist, but like maybe if I push them hard enough, you're going to find that they're more liberal or social democratic or somewhere closer to the left. And in that case, some kinds of discourse will be effective. You know, I guess my conclusion here is like discourse itself is not completely bad or irrational. I think the other side of it is I think we have to drop the illusion that somehow civility is the answer to all of this. I find that like the pretense to civil discourse is just super wrong, and it relies on an assumption that if you just casually talk to people and try to meet them where they're at and like be nice to them, that somehow they're going to change their mind. And I don't know that there's a ton of evidence to support that in the psychological literature. As someone who used to study that stuff, from what I understand, it's like it can work in the short time, but also have like various like backfiring effects. So it's like, so for example, if it's about like race and stuff, like they might be, oh yeah, but you're one of the cool black people, but it's those other black people, right? So like, civil discourse will get them to like you, but still not change their opinion about race generally. And there is some evidence that shows that if you tell people to fuck off and you shame them enough, that can have an effect in making them go, why does everyone hate me? And it might not be right away, it might be time, but you also don't want to allow for the cultivating of communities where they all get to sit around, like the incel community, and sit around and hum and haw about like how depressing their lives are and like feed off of each other, right? There needs to be places for these people to integrate with like peer groups that aren't ideologically to the right. That's going to suck them back into that shit.
There's a lot you can do too, like on an org level, if you're like in a, because a lot of this has to do with just minority versus majority, right? So there's you can start your own org, which I mean, there's a lot of work to do, but it's not impossible. Or there's a lot of local orgs, I'm sure, just about where anybody lives. When you start reaching out to, your neighbors, the in-need population, who may even be Trump supporters or things like that, like when you can feed and clothe people, when you can help people find shelter, connect them to resources, there's been a lot of studies that show that that's like one of the single biggest factors in a lot of people changing their minds. I'll see if I can find it, but there was this guy that talked about, I don't know if it was a TED talk or like just some other TED ripoff, but talking about how his neighbor was a big time Trump supporter, like just really being shitty all the time, screaming at people, using racial slurs and all this kind of thing. And then he almost lost his house, and he lost his house, he almost lost his house, he lost his family, like just all this horrible stuff. And it was through that kindness that helped him over to the other side. Now, obviously, that's not going to be the case for everyone.
No, you raised a good point, and I'll let you finish, and then I'll add in.
It's really just, I mean, this is why, like, I number one, why I think centrism is an absolute disease, number one. And number two, I'm not saying that tired old thing of like, we need to try to coerce Nazis to our side. We need to talk to the worst people. It's not about that. It's about finding people in their time of need. And if you talk to that person and they're still an asshole, you still did the right thing. You helped them, but then you can tell them to fuck right off. Like, you need to be able to approach people with the idea that you don't want anything in return. And I think that a lot of that kindness is what helps a lot of people turn, because they expect everyone to be a bunch of screeching ninnies.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, this feeds into two things that I might have missed in some of like earlier points and stuff like that, which is that one thing that's really good, and this, like, is outside the electoral part of this, which is, one thing is just changing people's material conditions. Now, like, that can be done through electoral politics, but the chances of that are very rare. Like, this $2,000, as great as it is not going to be sufficient to change people's, like, material conditions, right?
No, not at all.
But part of this is, like, you have people who are in need right now, and the government is not helping them. And so one thing to do is mutual aid groups, mutual aid organizing, even organizing without the legal structures, feeding the homeless, even though in some cases it's against the law, organizing to do that, helping people who get evicted from their homes, blocking people from getting evicted from their homes, putting your body on the line for that. Now, not everyone can do that, but these are like ways that you can engage outside of electoral politics to change the material conditions of individual lives and communities. And that's another way of getting them on board to our side, outside of it. Because here's the thing is, as you said, they can be people who are more to the right. And the point is, you're going to help them anyways, even though they are to the right, Because really, at the end of the day, it's about helping people. Yeah.
You're going to find... Sorry, go ahead.
Get ready for the centrist Steelman yet again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, and both of you have raised really good points about essentially offering them social circles outside of the typical sort of right-leaning, morally dubious areas they typically operate in. But here comes the cold water, right? Here comes the cold water.
Chill me.
What do you do if, the sort of maybe more left-wing circles that they could be in are a little bit hostile to them, a little bit, maybe they're being a bit of an asshole to them, and not wanting to accept them because they're centrist?
I know most.
Go ahead.
I know most organizations take those things into consideration. Like, they have ways of keeping people still helping people while also isolating them from being assholes to other people in various ways, right?
Well, that's an organization. I mean, just like at the social level, how do we do that?
Oh, well, I mean, if you're ever going to bring somebody, into the fold like that, I mean, I think that there's like kind of an inherent misunderstanding in how that works. Not from what you're saying, but the way that most people view it is that when you're talking to these people, you're not introducing them to. I'm not saying this is what you're saying, but you're not introducing them to groups of people or like your group of friends that are more left wing, because that's incredibly dangerous and it can be very incendiary to like anybody. When that person decides to blow up or get angry or whatever, can be very incendiary and awful to everybody. So what I'm saying specifically, to Jody's point about like, let's say you are this deeply racist, horrible Trump supporter and you're getting evicted, like you're in probably what amounts to one of the worst days of your life. And you see all of these people that you hate, coming to your rescue, even though they know that you hate them, to help you. It's not a panacea. It's not a cure-all.
Right.
And if that person is still hostile towards you and you come to their aid, then you drop them. You tell them to go fuck themselves. Like there's a level of kindness that people. This is my opinion. There's a level of kindness that people deserve to be afforded within reason, simply for the fact that they're human beings. But it's up to how they react to it. And so I think it's very case by case. Like I've had instances where I've reached out to people and they just tell me to go fuck myself. Like you're a lefty commie, anarcho-socialist, communist, China plant or whatever their thing is now.
Chicom.
Yeah, Chinacom. And I'll say, yeah, hey, I tried, and you're unreceptive, so sorry about your luck. And that's what I do to like protect myself. You have to. I guess it's just all so case by case. I don't know that there's a good way to go about it.
I'll chime in before you give us another centrist Steelman. I agree with that, and I think it works both ways. Like obviously, if they're gonna refuse, then whatever. Like you can't win everyone, and the goal isn't to win everyone, right? It's about critical mass to a certain extent. And so like that's part of the way that it is. Like there's going to definitely be people that we're not going to reach. I've discussed before, like based on some of the research of right-wing authoritarianism, like right-wing authoritarians roughly make 30 to 40% of a population, and they tend to be people that aren't persuaded by anything. So they're kind of stuck there. But like it doesn't mean you know who they are, and it doesn't mean you give up on people or whatever. But yeah, there's going to be unreachable people, and that's the way that it is. But the other thing is it works both ways, and I don't think it's a problem. I don't think it's a problem that if there are some people on the left who, because of their own trauma or other things that they've been through, that they don't want to engage in the way that, say, Oddnon and I are talking about, they can find other ways to engage. But it's fine, and I don't think that's a negative. Like I think a lot of people who are centrists or to the right see this as the safe space and stuff like this, but it's like, why re-traumatize people when you can have other people fill in and do this work that can, right?
Well, I think that these people, like, I see a lot. I'm not cutting you off, am I?
No. Well, maybe you're cutting off Elrond, but not me.
Oh, sorry. If you wanna.
If you're ready to hear like the second centrist Steelman. I mean, like, I hear what you guys are saying in regards to
why can't we have conversations?
I just think it's really important that we have these sort of conversations, like what we're doing right now. It's so important. No, but like, I hear what you're saying, particularly about right-wing authoritarians, particularly about people who are juxtaposed to the positions you have and offering them help in that time of need. Completely agree with that. But as the centrist Steelman, I feel obliged to. Hello, Simone. I feel obliged to like point out that like people reach out for help in a lot of different ways. And who we're talking about usually are centrists. We're usually talking about people, let's be real, having reactions on the internet, doing streams, posting ridiculously to Twitter. I can see Simone really doesn't like what I have to say.
Why are you talking about me right now?
They're sticking their butt out.
You're not even subtweeting. You're just substreaming me.
She just gets in these moods where she needs to grind my face, so we just gotta get it over with.
That's fine. It's like,
there are these people who call themselves centrist, and as I got to before, is part of me feels like a component of them, or like a subset of them, are trying to deal with the cognitive dissonance of leaving these sort of extreme right-wing views. And so then when I ask the question of like, how do you start to move them away from those circles? You know, I understand if like, oh, you don't want to bring them in because maybe they say something extremely racist and it really pisses people off and that creates a hostile environment. Totally get that. But at the same time, as I said before, if you have those circles then closed off to them, where are they going to go? Like what? Like the social drive to fit into somewhere is extremely powerful, and this is why I'm bringing it back to like, you know, armchair psychology instead of politics. Like again, trying to convince, and maybe I'm thinking about this too much on like an individual by individual level. Like, you know, like what
You
is the
can't
social
win them
buffer that?
all.
No, we can't save them all, but maybe we can save the one that will take, you know, centrist out of their bio. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I have an anecdotal.
Anecdotal?
Sorry, I had emergency general surgery recently, so it's on my mind. I have an anecdotal surgery. Jeez.
keep trying.
Okay, I have an anecdotal story.
Nailed it.
Got him.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a dream that I wish.
Yeah. You could do anything?
So I had one of my many, at the time, 4 a.m. drunken nights on Discord. I had gotten roped into on one of the BreadTube servers. This kid who was like probably 19 got into one of the servers and was arguing with people like for the memes. And I was pretty lit at the time, and I was like, I'm gonna change his mind. So he invited me to his Minecraft server with his friend, and under the pretense of having a serious conversation, and I talked with them for maybe 20 minutes, and like all he did was make fun of me. And so I was like, hey, I'm gonna go. I think it's really shitty that you did this, and that's fine. Like, you know, we all have to decide who we're gonna be at the end of the day, but that's that. So have a good life. I'll see you later. And the next day, he messages me like early in the morning, like giving me like anime suggestions or something, and I didn't respond. And so over the course of a week, this kid had messaged me without a response maybe 5 or 6 times. And so I finally messaged him, and I was like, hey man, like, I don't want to talk to you. I have no interest in being your friend. We're not friends. Like, I don't hate you, but you did a really shitty and mean thing, and you don't always get to just come back from that. And he went on this whole tirade about, you know, I was just trying to be funny and like having fun with my friends, and I was like, that wasn't funny. You were like joking about genocide and like killing Palestinian people for fun. That's not funny to me. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm going to block you. And he's like, dude, please don't. I'm sorry. No, I'm going to block you. So I had stayed out of that server for the lefty Discord server of an undisclosed person for a long time. And I went back to look at like my last messages because I was going to leave the server because I was trying to find some link I posted there. And I had incidentally saw this kid start to post with these people like in earnest about 2 days after we had that conversation. And somebody had asked, you know, you were just a troll in here, like what's going on? And he's like, well, I guess I'm just curious. And then that person went on to apparently become like a pretty serious lefty, and then everyone clapped.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
But that is a true story, and so
And that kid's name was Albert Einstein.
and that kid was Britney Spears.
I think part of it too is like I'm agreeing with what like where you're going with this, and part of me is I guess finish your thought and then I can.
Yeah, just a quick aside on it is I guess what I'm getting at is like especially like in my growing up the way that I did, and the anecdote with that kid and like other instances that aren't worth talking about is like I agree with what Elrond is saying. I do think that the need to fit in is overbearing, but I do believe so I don't drink all the time, that people know what they're doing is wrong a pretty good amount of the time. And I think that while the need to fit in is overwhelming, I do think that people can kind of see the error in that, and maybe I'm too hopeful.
No, I think, but fitting in, changing someone's social group is what helps to like de-radicalize people. The only problem is that it's like where those communities can be and which communities aren't that, right? So for example, I don't know, our Discord for this stream and the podcast, we had someone jump in who was very pro-Israel to an extent which I gave them a warning, knowing that they were ahead of time, that, you know, on this show, in this Discord, we stand the Palestinian people, all that fun stuff.
This is a non-starter, in other words.
Just like, you know, if you want to be here, this is like a topic that we're going to be a little bit more like firm with in making sure that like things don't get out of hand. And then it would be like they would push that limit several times to the point where it's like, I don't know that you're someone who can change on this belief, and you're making other people uncomfortable, and this is a place that I want to be for people to feel comfortable, which is different than saying wanting it to be a space where we're all gonna like try to be friends even though we hold differing viewpoints or something like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, they are different things, yeah.
And so
you
it's
definitely make us Americans feel super welcome.
What are you talking about? I love you. You're both the two Americans are on this show right now. And I'm talking about saving your democracy today.
I think that's the white guilt, if I'm being real.
Hey, listen, if you want to talk about abolish Canada, I'm here for it all day. We don't. It's not just your country, you know.
We stand no country.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, I mean, there are some people that I've done that with. Like, I'm not one of these people who says you like, I mean, like, I'm critical about it, but I'm not one of these people who says that you can't be sociable with people that are completely bigoted. But it's how you do it, right? And how you maintain that thing, and what are the parameters in which you interact with them, such that like you don't want to be like, there's some of these people, these big profile accounts that be like, oh, I'm totally like best friends with this racist, and like. And then you're promoting the racist instead of like being like, I'm in a critical but here's the thing is like, if you're actually going to engage in a critical relationship like that, it's probably not going to be one you're going to want to share on Twitter.
My therapist did a lot of work with like racist people, and one of the things that they had said was that I totally like lost my train of thought here. One of the things that they said was that one of the most effective things you can do is set a list of boundaries up front. And so you could say like, you know, tell them like, and you wouldn't say it like this, but as an example, you could say like, hey, like I recognize that maybe we have some common goals and I appreciate that. I'd like to talk more. These are my boundaries. If you say something racist, whether you think it is or not, that's a no-go for me. I'm going to stop talking to you, you know, and stop talking doesn't mean like I'm going to block you. It means like we're done talking. I'm ending the conversation. And in this study that they were a part of at some college campus teaching anarcho-communist socialism across the nation, some of the results were pretty surprising, because when you end up befriending somebody, and again, I'm not saying that everybody go out and befriend a bigot, but when you do have friendships with these types of people, setting up healthy boundaries causes it forces them to sympathize with you, and when they sympathize with you, they get upset when you're upset.
Just to make a quick plug, sorry to interrupt, but setting healthy boundaries is important for everyone, regardless of what their excuse is.
Yes.
There's no excuse for committing a behavior that crosses your boundaries, regardless of whether they say, oh, I'm ignorant of this, or, oh, I have such and such, disorder. Like, people know you should enforce your boundaries for your own health.
Yeah.
Okay, back to centrist steelmanning. I actually think that we have to have more conversations and civil Okay.
Oh yes, look at these healthy boundaries right here.
Wait, we need more Triscuits?
Oh.
Because I like that snack food. Is that what you said? Triscuits? Elrond, have you ever had Triscuits?
It's because it's just a Triscuit stream.
Triscuits, they're not in the centrist diet. They're very much a left wing.
They're very divisive. Yeah, when you put recipes right on the box like that, I mean.
Yeah.
So before we divert this into a Triscuit conversation, I think we've said a lot. I think we've done enough. I think I might just leave it at this as being like the magical centrist stream. I was going to talk about optics. It seems like Rico. I was up all night with Rico last night, and so Rico's pretty tired. And that's
I saw that.
Fair. That is fair, Rico. And I mainly wanted to talk to him about optics. We've had some discussions back and forth about that. I think most of us in here might all agree with the optics discussion, so I don't know if it's a.
No, I agree.
worthwhile.
Like we have to be careful about our optics. We have to be moderate.
I find that like, while Rico doesn't say that he's explicitly left wing or anything, I find myself agreeing with him on a lot of things that would otherwise people would be like, oh, you know. I think a lot of his takes are very, especially when it comes to optics. I went through and watched a couple of his YouTube videos last night because I haven't, and I was like, man, this is some good stuff.
I can't tell what's. No, I love me some Rico. Obviously, Rico's awesome, and I don't know if we'll disagree too much. But there's some variations, I think, or subtleties. But I think like having that discussion with him might be interesting because there might be subtle differences, and you can come to some kind of like, I don't know, imaginative spark or something. Where it's like, I don't know, I've had this discussion all the time with Elrond, and I know we pretty much are either on or near the same page on it, so... it'll just be me being like point and him being like I agree, and I'll be like I agree with you, and then what else is new? But I don't know if like I could ask you before we sign off. What's your thought on optics? Do you think like I don't know, like the burning of the police precinct in Minneapolis, was that bad optics for the left?
Are you asking me or the interest in
Oddnon? Or anyone in the chat? Does anyone what are people's thoughts on the optics?
I mean, so it depends on how you're asking the question. So for me personally, just given the context of the situation, absolutely not. I mean, from the outside perspective with zero information, which is going to be most people, yeah, sure, it looks bad. Do I think it was bad? No, I think that there is the better part of a century or more of entire swaths of this country using the system like they were told to, trying to make change while they're being slaughtered in the streets for lesser crimes. And I think when you've dealt with that for over a century, and you're continuing to use the system and you're constantly being told like, no, not like that, not like that, not like that, not like that. Like something has to give. And unfortunately, this is the product of what happens when you don't fucking listen.
Yeah.
Like this is not like the people storming the Capitol today. These are people that have spent all of this time working the system, hoping that it would work as intended, and it just doesn't. What happened today was a bunch of shitty, privileged, piss-lick assholes throwing a temper tantrum in the form of sedition and domestic terrorism.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel. I have a lot more to say about
No, I feel like I just wanted to clarify, like, I feel like I framed this in a way to make Rico sound like he would think that was bad for optics, and I'm not saying that. He probably thinks similar to what you're thinking, Oddnon. I don't know. I'd have to ask him. But
sure.
I think part of it, to me, like, I just get frustrated that a lot of online discourse is about optics, and I find the conversation itself, like, I want to have a meta conversation about it, similar to me having a meta conversation about whether defund the police was a good, like, was a good slogan, right? It's a very similar conversation to me, because, like, the point for me is, like, I feel far too often the left engages in this like optic scrutinizing to the point where it's like, how do we know whether or not something is being successful or not? Especially on such a short time frame. Like, and most of these conversations are held without any evidence whatsoever. So it's like, was Martin Luther King's Selma March effective, or was some of the stuff that the Black Panthers were doing, or Malcolm X? Like, which was the thing that was like the most effective that got us to where we are today, such that civil rights advanced slightly, but like still advanced, right? And so I think a lot of people pick and choose their own historical narratives that they then get to decide, this is the correct strategy, this is how it worked, when really, if you look at history, it's a hodgepodge of a plurality of strategies, and yet somehow we advance nonetheless to a certain degree, right? And so part of it is I feel like we get so hyper fixated on things like, oh, someone burned a flag at a protest, that's going to make us look bad, or oh my god, the activist did this and that's going to make us look bad. And I feel like here's the thing, like, I think you also have to think about what you can or you cannot control. Because I also cannot control what every single person does who affiliates with my movement. And part of that is, like, I mean, there's got to be some shaving off. Like, if all of a sudden some fascist is joining, like, no, get the fuck out of here, right? But, like, what I'm saying is, like, if someone brings out a flag and start burning it, even though we weren't like, this is a burn the flag parade. But it's like, there's a point where it's like, some of that you just got to let slide and keep moving forward. And yet we still seem to get bogged down. And I think part of it's a reflection of right-wing media and the fact that right-wing media constantly talks about this stuff, and that sucks people into the conversation. Where in reality, they're going to make shit up anyways. Like, I just feel like it's such a waste of time dealing with that. I think acknowledging that they've looked at it, ching, okay, we've done that, which is what I do on my podcast. The right-wing said something. We documented it. But then moving on with our organizing and getting the shit we want done. But
I'll keep it short here. But that's kind of why I started my little project that I told you about the other night. Is it is a matter of optics, you know.
Like what?
Well, the podcast.
The podcast is a matter of optics?
Yeah, like I said, you know, a lot of people, like with us, like they see, you know, guillotine memes and all this kind of stuff, and they immediately get turned off and they assume that it's this big grand, you know, horrible thing of violent people, when in reality, you know, there's so much more to it.
Yeah, I don't think so. I guess let me tone down just slightly what I just said, which is like, I don't think optics are completely and utterly irrelevant, in the sense that I think your show is. So for those who don't know, Oddnon is doing a show now. I already posted the link in the chat.
No, we don't have to do that.
No, I think it's relevant to the point. So you're interviewing people who are leftists and getting to learn about leftism through their own experience. And I think that in itself is a kind of optics, because you're putting it out there and people are seeing people's journeys, and that is a good thing. It's a good way to get to know like what we are and that stuff. But, like, I do think that there's other parts of it, which is, like, yes, I think some of the, like, hammer and sickles and, like, Moe's gulag jokes in the chat or whatever, that, like, I'm even, like, myself, some of that stuff makes me uncomfortable. Only because, like, I worry, too, like, even though, like, I might be a little bit more maybe sympathetic to some Marxist-Leninists as people, and even though I don't identify as Marxist-Leninist, I think part of the problem is that a lot of people adopt this stuff as like an aesthetic. So they'll like wear the hammer and sickle, but like really haven't invested any time to thinking about like how they're actually going to get the shit that they want done, and haven't gone out there to actually involve themselves in organizing and getting people involved and unionizing and all that fun stuff. And so I worry that it becomes just a social signifier that's like purely empty. And I'm like, and to the extent that it like turns people off beyond that, of just being like, because they relate it to what happened in the Soviet Union and China and stuff like this. I think it's easy. See, I find it's like easier not to adopt that stuff, so I'm not put in the position where I have to like quasi defend what they did, in part because I don't want to defend everything that they did. But yeah, it can become burdensome to that extent. But to me, that almost feels like more like pragmatic on my end rather than like the vibes I'm putting off, I guess. Because if in the end the that position is fully true and worth pushing, then like whatever, wear your hammer and sickles and go for it. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I guess that's it. Unless Elrond wants to have any finishing words on this.
Nope.
All right. So I will eventually talk to Rico about some of this stuff in the future. So we preempted it here, and then we'll talk later. And I think an hour and a half is a good time for a stream. So now I'll find a way to raid. Let's see who we want to raid today. So I followed somebody recently named Sonsol, but I've never actually watched their content. So it's a bit iffy to raid them, but I was told they're left-leaning. I expected so little, still am disappointed here. We'll raid them. Don't do it. Don't do it. Oh no. Well, I mean, I have Famous Horse on. Here's the thing is, I love Famous Horse, but I feel like everyone in the chat has already been to Famous Horse because I've raided him several times. I mean, there's also Left Flank Vets. I enjoy them, but they're a bigger channel. They already got a ton of people watching.
Senator from New
Oh, we don't need to watch
A new
this.
day of infamy, guys.
All right, okay. What we're gonna do is we're gonna do Famous Horse again because it's trusted, it's true.
Of the National
I
Guard.
will
It
watch.
said, like,
I will watch. Oh, stop with all this preview bullshit. I will.
Should I leave the chat?
No, you can write it to the end.
Okay.
And then, because I mean we're 2 seconds away, I'm just going to raid them, and then that'll be the end of this stream. I just gotta type their name into the thing here. Oh, /raid. Oh fuck, my cat's in the way. Famous Horse, all one word. Famous Horse got kicked off Twitter. Rest in peace. All right, we're about to raid. Say goodbye, Oddnon and Elrond. Thank you for joining.
Yeah. Thanks for having me for a little bit.
Goodbye.
Guess I'll do this 1 second, very quickly. Promote Patreon. Donate to the show. We love you. And enjoy Famous Horse. Give him a thumbs up. Good job. And say thumbs down centrism. Woo!
Thumbs down centrism.
All right. I think I've officially rated.